The space station was huge. Captain Ji-won looked out the window of her ship and saw the giant metal structure spinning slowly in the darkness. Lights blinked on its surface like tiny stars. This was Omega 7, the most important place in the galaxy. Today, humans would meet the Galactic Council for the first time. "Are you ready, Captain?" asked Sergeant Minho. He stood behind her wearing his best uniform. The big man looked calm, but Ji-won could see he was nervous too. "As ready as we can." "Be," Ji-won said. She turned to look at her small team. Dr. Nari was checking her medical bag one more time. Engineer Hyan-woo was reading data on his tablet. Lieutenant Sora was testing the communication equipment. They were the best Earth had to offer. The ship docked with a soft bump. Ji-won took a deep breath. "Remember, everyone, we are here to make friends. Earth needs allies in space." The airlock opened with a hiss. Cool air rushed in, carrying strange smells. Ji-won stepped forward first, as a captain should. Her team followed close behind. The docking bay was enormous. The ceiling was so high that Ji-won could barely see it. Strange machines moved boxes and cargo around. But what caught her attention were the aliens waiting for them. They looked like giant lizards walking on two legs. Their skin was dark green and covered with thick scales. Some had big scars across their faces and arms. Their eyes were yellow and cold. They wore black armor that looked very heavy. The biggest alien stepped forward. He was at least 7 feet tall. A red cloth hung from his shoulder, showing his high rank. His voice was deep and rough when he spoke. "I am War Commander Threxvel of the Vorthak Empire," he said. His mouth full of sharp teeth showed when he talked. "You are the humans from the small world called Earth." "Yes," Ji-won said, stepping forward with confidence. "I am Captain Ji-won. We are honored to meet the Galactic Council." Threxvel looked down at her. His yellow eyes moved over the human team, studying them like a hunter studies prey. "You are very small," he said, "and your skin looks soft. How did creatures like you survive on a death world?" Behind him, other Vorthak warriors made sounds that might have been laughter. One of them, with a scar over his left eye, whispered something to his friend. Ji-won heard the word weak in their translation. "Earth has made us strong in ways you might not expect," Ji-won said calmly. She did not let the insults bother her. "Strong?" Threxvel made a sound like a growl. "You have no claws, no thick skin, no natural weapons. Your planet's file says it has dangerous weather and wild beasts, but you look like you would break if I touched you." Minho stepped forward slightly. Ji-won held up her hand to stop him. She knew the sergeant wanted to defend them, but this was not the time for anger. "Perhaps we could show you what human strength looks like," Ji-won said with a small smile. "But first we need to complete our daily routines. Would that be acceptable?" The Vorthak looked confused. Threxvel tilted his big head to one side. "Daily routines? You mean weapons practice? Prayer to your war gods?" "Something like that," Ji-won said. She was not lying exactly. What humans did every day was important for staying healthy and ready for anything. "Very well," Threxvel said. "We will give you 1 hour. Then you will show us why the Council thinks your species deserves membership. If you disappoint us, we will recommend that Earth stays isolated forever." The threat was clear. The Vorthak controlled 3 voting blocks in the Council. If they said no to humanity, Earth would stay alone in space. "We understand," Ji-won said. "Thank you for your patience." A smaller alien, who looked like a blue bird walking upright, led them through the station's halls. The corridors were wide and tall. built for many different species. Ji-won saw creatures she had only read about in reports. Some had too many arms, others floated in the air. A few looked almost human but with different colored skin. "Your quarters are here," the bird alien said in a high, musical voice. "You have full access to station facilities. Please do not wander into restricted areas." The human quarters were simple but comfortable. There were 5 sleeping rooms, a common area, and a small kitchen. Most importantly, there was a bathroom with running water and human-style fixtures. "Finally," Dr. Nari said, setting down her bags. "I need to freshen up after that long trip." "Me too," said Hyun-woo. "I feel dirty after 3 days in space." Ji-won nodded. "Everyone take care of your personal needs first. We want to make a good impression when we meet the full council tomorrow." What the humans did not know was that Threxvel and his warriors were already making plans. The war commander had decided these soft creatures could not possibly be real Deathworld survivors. They must be weak and cowardly. "Post guards at their quarters," Threxvel told his lieutenant, Gorthak. "Watch what they do during these daily routines. If they are warriors, they will show their true nature when they think no one is watching." "Yes, Commander," Gorthak said. "Should we record everything?" "Yes. I want proof of their weakness, for the Council. When they see how pathetic these humans really are, they will vote against membership." Gorthak gathered 3 other warriors. They moved quietly through the station's service passages. The Vorthak were excellent hunters and knew how to stay hidden. They found good hiding spots near the human quarters. Through the walls, they could hear voices. The humans were talking about normal things, how tired they were, what they wanted to eat, complaints about the long space journey. To the Vorthak, this sounded like the complaints of weaklings. "Listen to them," whispered one warrior. "They whine like younglings." "Wait," Gorthak said. "Something is happening." Inside the quarters, the humans were splitting up. Each went to their own room. The sounds of movement came through the walls. Water started running somewhere. "They are preparing for something," Gorthak said quietly into his communicator. "War Commander, the humans are beginning their routines." "Good," came Threxvel's voice. "Document everything. I want to see what these so-called Deathworld survivors do when they think no one is watching." The Vorthak warriors settled in to spy. They expected to see the humans' true cowardly nature. Maybe they would cry about missing home. Maybe they would practice with weak weapons. Maybe they would beg their gods for protection. They had no idea what they were actually about to witness. Inside the human quarters, Minho was looking forward to his first real shower in days. The ship's water recycling system worked fine, but nothing beat fresh, clean water. He turned on the shower and waited for it to get hot. "Ah, perfect," he said to himself as steam began to fill the small bathroom. Outside, hidden in the walls, alien warriors prepared to watch what they thought would be a display of human weakness. Instead, they were about to see something that would shake their understanding of the universe itself. Gorthak pressed his ear to the wall. The sound of running water was getting louder. Steam was coming out from under the door of the human quarters. He looked at his fellow warriors with confusion. "Are they flooding their room?" whispered Krell, a young warrior with bright green scales. "Maybe it is some kind of torture," said Vex, the oldest of the group. "Humans might use water as a weapon." Through the thin walls, they could hear Minho moving around. The water sound changed, becoming more like rain. Then they heard something that made all 4 Vorthak freeze with shock. Minho was singing, not a war song or a death chant. He was singing a happy tune about sunshine and good weather, while water poured around him, while steam filled the air. He sounds happy, Krell said in disbelief. Impossible, Gorthak said. No warrior sings during torture. The singing stopped. Now they heard new sounds. Splashing, scrubbing. Something that sounded like Minho was fighting with a wild animal, but he was still making contented noises. Gorthak activated his spy device. It was a small camera that could see through walls using heat detection. What he saw on the screen made his blood go cold. The human was standing under a stream of burning hot water. The heat signature was clear. The water was hot enough to cook food. But instead of screaming in pain, the human was rubbing something white and foamy all over his body. By the 7 moons, Gorthak breathed. He is covering himself with some kind of chemical. The foam was everywhere. Minho rubbed it on his arms, his chest, his back. He seemed to enjoy the burning sensation. The Vorthak watched in horror as their heat detector showed the chemical reaction happening on the human skin. It is acid, Vex said with certainty. He is dissolving his outer skin layer on purpose. But why? Krell asked. Is this how humans prepare for battle? Gorthak did not answer. He was too busy watching the human do something even more terrifying. Minho had picked up a rough, scratchy object and was dragging it across his skin. Back and forth, over and over. The human was actually scraping his own body with what looked like a tool made for removing paint. He is removing his skin, Gorthak said quietly. Layer by layer. The water kept pouring down on the human. Steam filled the small room. The temperature was hot enough to kill most species, but the human acted like it felt good. He tilted his head back and let the scalding water hit his face directly. How is he still alive? Krell whispered. Then came the most horrifying part. The human picked up a small brush with hard bristles, but instead of using it to clean his equipment, he put it in his mouth. He squeezed some kind of paste onto it and began scrubbing his teeth. The Vorthak warriors watched in stunned silence as Minho brushed back and forth, making foam appear in his mouth. The paste was clearly some kind of poison. It was bright blue and smelled like strong chemicals. But the human was putting it inside his body on purpose. He is poisoning himself, Vex said in shock. From the inside. Look at how hard he scrubs, Krell pointed out. He is trying to remove his own teeth. For 3 full minutes, Minho attacked his mouth with the bristled weapon. Foam dripped from his lips. His teeth should have been destroyed, but somehow they looked whiter and cleaner when he was done. Then he did something that made Gorthak drop his spy device. Minho picked up a bottle of bright blue liquid. He poured some into his mouth, swished it around, and then spit it out. The liquid was clearly toxic. Even from their hiding place, the Vorthak could smell the powerful chemicals. Mouth poison, Gorthak said weakly. He is gargling with mouth. Poison. But the human was not finished. Next, he picked up a sharp metal blade. The Vorthak expected him to use it as a weapon, maybe to cut enemies. Instead, Minho covered his face with white foam and began dragging the blade across his own skin. No, 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 Krell said, covering his eyes. I cannot watch this. But Gorthak forced himself to keep watching. The human was systematically scraping the blade across his face, removing hair and skin together. Blood should have been everywhere. The human should have been screaming. Instead, he looked calm and happy. His pain tolerance is impossible, Gorthak said. No living creature should be able to do this to itself. The blade made scraping sounds against the human's skin. Again and again, Minho dragged it across his face. When he was done, His face looked different, smoother, younger somehow, like the torture had actually improved his appearance. "He is regenerating," Vex said in awe. "The torture makes him stronger." Finally, the water stopped. Minho stepped out of the steamy chamber, completely clean and looking refreshed. He dried himself with a soft cloth and started putting on fresh clothes. He was humming again, the same happy tune from before. The Vorthak warriors sat in stunned silence for several minutes. What they had just witnessed went against everything they understood about biology, pain, and survival. "We must tell the war commander immediately," Gorthak said. His voice was shaking. "Tell him what?" Krell asked. "That humans torture themselves for fun? That they can survive acid baths and blade attacks? That they drink poison and smile?" "All of that," Gorthak said grimly. "The war commander needs to know what we are dealing with." He activated his communicator. "War Commander Threxvel, urgent report." "What did you learn, Lieutenant?" came the reply. "Sir, the humans, they are not what we expected. We just watched one of them perform some kind of ritual. He stood under boiling water for 10 minutes. He covered himself with acid. He scraped his skin with rough tools. He poisoned his mouth. He cut his face with a blade." There was silence on the communicator. Then, was this some kind of torture? Were they interrogating him? No, sir. He was alone. He was singing. He seemed to enjoy it. Another long silence. "That is impossible, Lieutenant." "I have it recorded, sir. The human called it taking a shower. We think it might be how they prepare for battle. Their pain tolerance is beyond anything we have ever seen." "Keep watching," Threxvel ordered. "If one human can do this to himself, I need to know what their warriors are truly capable of." But even as Gorthak agreed to continue spying, he wondered if they were making a terrible mistake. What kind of species could survive daily torture and call it normal? What kind of warrior could poison himself every morning and grow stronger from it? In the next room, Dr. Nari was preparing for her own shower. She had brought special shampoo and conditioner for her hair. She also had a new, exfoliating scrub that was supposed to make her skin feel amazing. The Vorthak had no idea that the worst was yet to come. Word spread quickly through the Vorthak ranks. What started as 4 warriors watching the humans had grown to 12. War Commander Threxvel himself had come to see the recordings. Now half the Vorthak delegation was crowded into the service corridors, trying to understand what they had witnessed. "Play it again," Threxvel ordered. Gorthak showed the heat signature video for the 3rd time. The other warriors watched in silence as the human stood under scalding water and covered himself with acid foam. Several younger Vorthak had to look away when the blade-scraping part began. "This is beyond anything in our combat manuals," said Commander Zeth, Threxvel's second-in-command. "No species should be able to withstand this level of self-inflicted damage." "And you say he was happy during this torture?" asked another warrior. "Singing," Gorthak confirmed, "like it was the best part of his day." Threxvel studied the data. The water temperature was 104 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to cause serious burns to Vorthak's skin. The chemical composition of the foam showed it was designed to break down organic matter. The blade was sharp enough to cut through armor. "Perhaps this was special preparation for meeting us," Threxvel said thoughtfully. "A way to show strength before negotiations." "Sir," interrupted Krell, who was monitoring the current situation. "The female human is beginning the same ritual now." All eyes turned to the spy screens. Dr. Nari had entered the washing chamber. Steam was already building up as she adjusted the water temperature. Another warrior preparing for battle, Zeth said. This makes sense. But what they witnessed next shattered their understanding completely. Dr. Nari did not just repeat what Minho had done. She made it worse. Much worse. First, she stood under the boiling water for even longer than the male had. The Vorthak watched their heat sensors as the temperature climbed to 108 degrees. Steam poured out of the room like a volcano erupting. "How is she still conscious?" whispered a young warrior named Grix. Then Dr. Nari opened several bottles of different chemicals. She poured one liquid onto her hair, a substance so strong that the Vorthak could smell it through the walls. She massaged it into her scalp, covering every strand with the toxic mixture. "Hair poison," Gorthak noted grimly. "She is destroying her sensory organs." But she was not finished. Dr. Nari opened a second bottle and applied more chemicals to her hair. Then a third bottle with a different formula. Each one stronger than the last. 3 different poisons, Zeth said in awe. Applied directly to the brain area. The human female began scrubbing her skin with something that looked like sandpaper mixed with small rocks. The abrasive material should have torn her flesh apart. Instead, she rubbed it all over her arms and legs like it felt wonderful. "Rock torture," Krell said faintly. "She is grinding her skin off with actual rocks." Several Vorthak had to sit down. The sight of voluntary self-destruction was making them sick. Their stomachs could not handle watching a creature deliberately hurt itself so severely. Dr. Nari spent 25 minutes in the chemical steam chamber. When she finally emerged, her skin was bright red from the heat and chemical exposure, but instead of showing pain, she looked relaxed and happy. "Impossible," Threxvel muttered. "No creature can survive 25 minutes of chemical warfare against its own body." "Sir," Grix said weakly, "there is more." Through the walls, they could hear other humans moving around. Multiple showers were running now. The entire human delegation was performing these torture rituals at the same time. "All of them?" Zeth asked. "Every single human does this?" The answer came as they monitored the other rooms. Engineer Hyunwoo was in his washing chamber, singing the same happy songs while chemical foam covered his body. Lieutenant Sora was in another room, applying what looked like war paint to her face, except she was scraping it off with rough cloth instead of wearing it into battle. "They are preparing their entire unit for combat," Threxvel said. "This must be how Deathworld species survive. They build pain tolerance through daily torture. But then they witnessed something that broke the mind of every watching Vorthak. Captain Jiwon had finished her own chemical bath. Now she was performing what could only be described as advanced torture techniques on herself. She had produced a length of thin wire and was using it to slice between her teeth. "Dental wire torture," Gorthak said, his voice barely a whisper. "She is cutting inside her own mouth." The captain worked the wire back and forth between each tooth. Tiny amounts of blood appeared, but she continued without stopping. Her face showed no pain, only concentration. "How many nerve endings are in the mouth?" asked Grix. "Thousands," Zeth replied. "It should be agony." But Captain Jiwon acted like the wire slicing was normal, even boring. She did it to every tooth in her mouth, taking her time to be thorough. When she was done, she rinsed with more chemical poison and smiled at herself in the mirror. "She is smiling," Krell said in shock. "After cutting up the inside of her mouth, she is happy about it." The final horror came when Lieutenant Sora produced a device that glowed with heat. The Dao Vorthak sensors showed it was reaching temperatures of over 300 degrees, hot enough to cook meat instantly. A thermal weapon, Threxavel said. Finally, something that makes sense. But Sora did not use the device as a weapon. Instead, she pressed it directly against her hair and held it there. The smell of burning filled the air, but she continued, applying the superheated metal to different parts of her head. She is cooking her own brain, Grix said, then promptly fainted. 2 other warriors had to carry him away. Several more were making sick sounds. The sight of a creature voluntarily applying cooking temperatures to its own head was too much for their minds to process. This explains everything, Threxvel said quietly. Humans do not just survive on death worlds. They are the death. They are so dangerous that they must constantly torture themselves to avoid accidentally killing everyone around them. Sir? Gorthak asked. Think about it, the war commander explained. They have such incredible pain tolerance and healing ability that normal activities would not challenge them. So they invented these rituals to keep their killer instincts sharp. Daily torture to maintain their warrior edge. It made terrible sense. A species that could casually endure acid baths, blade scraping, chemical poisoning, and thermal torture would view normal combat as relaxing. No wonder Earth was classified as a death world. It was populated by creatures that found pain enjoyable. What do we do? Zeth asked. Threxvel looked at the screens showing happy, clean humans getting dressed in fresh clothes. They were chatting and laughing like nothing had happened, like they had not just spent an hour systematically torturing themselves. We send a message to High Command, he said grimly. Abort all military operations in Sector 7. Humanity is not to be challenged under any circumstances. But, sir, the Council wants them as members. The Council can have them, Threxvel interrupted. But the Vorthak Empire will not stand in their way. Any species that performs torture for daily maintenance is too dangerous to fight. As the Vorthak warriors fled back to their quarters, they missed seeing the most terrifying sight of all. The humans were gathering in their common area, looking fresh and clean and happy. Dr. Nari was making coffee, a dark, bitter liquid that the humans drank for pleasure. Captain Jiwon was reading reports while casually using a small metal file to scrape her fingernails into sharp points, and they were all discussing their plans for tomorrow when they would meet the full Galactic Council and demonstrate what human civilization had to offer the galaxy. The Vorthak had no idea that what they called torture rituals was just the beginning of human strangeness. The next morning brought fresh horrors for the Vorthak observers. They had spent all night analyzing the torture recordings and sending emergency reports to their home world. The response from Vorthak High Command was clear. Avoid direct confrontation with humans at all costs. But War Commander Threxvel felt he needed more evidence. The Galactic Council would demand proof before they accepted that humans were too dangerous for normal diplomatic relations. So the spying continued. Gorthak had recovered from his shock enough to monitor the human quarters again. He expected the aliens to be weak and tired after their brutal self-torture sessions. Instead, he found them more active and energetic than before. They are stronger after the torture, he reported to Threxvel. The pain made them more powerful. As we suspected, the war commander replied grimly. Continue watching. Document everything. The first sign of new horror came from the human eating area. The aliens had prepared what they called breakfast. Gorthak watched through his heat sensors as engineer Hyunwoo began preparing food. What he saw defied all logic. Hyun-woo filled a metal container with water and placed it over a heat source. The water began to bubble and steam as it reached dangerous temperatures. Then, instead of using this boiling water as a weapon, the human dumped plant matter into it. "He is cooking plants in torture water," Gorthak whispered into his communicator. But it got worse. After the plants had been boiled for several minutes, Hyun-woo drained the scalding water and put the steaming vegetables on a plate. Steam rose from the food like smoke from a battlefield. Then the human did something that made Gorthak question his own sanity. Hyun-woo picked up the steaming plants with a metal tool and put them directly into his mouth. He chewed the burning hot food and swallowed it. Steam came out of his mouth with each breath, but he kept eating. "He is consuming superheated matter," Gorthak reported. "The food is still cooking temperature, but he is eating it anyway." Through the communicator, he heard several Vorthak warriors making distressed sounds. The idea of voluntarily swallowing boiling food was beyond their understanding. Dr. Nari joined Hyun-woo for breakfast. She poured herself a cup of the dark liquid called coffee. The heat signature showed it was nearly as hot as the vegetables. She lifted the cup to her lips and drank the scalding fluid like it was normal. "They consume liquid fire for pleasure," Gorthak said weakly. "How do their internal organs survive?" came Threxavel's voice. Before Gorthak could answer, he witnessed something even worse. Lieutenant Sora had produced a collection of small metal tools and bottles of clear liquid. She sat down at a table and began what could only be described as precision torture. First, she took a sharp metal blade and began cutting her fingernails. Not just trimming them, she was systematically removing parts of her body with surgical precision. Small pieces of keratin fell onto the table as she worked. "Self-amputation," Gorthak breathed. "She is removing her claws." But Sora was not finished with her fingers. She opened one of the bottles and poured clear liquid onto her hands. The chemical smell was strong enough for the Vorthak to detect through the walls. Then she began scrubbing her hands with rough cloth, applying the chemical burns deliberately. "Hand acid," Gorthak reported. "Applied directly to open wounds." The systematic self-mutilation continued for 20 minutes. Sora cut all her fingernails and toenails, then cleaned under each one with pointed metal tools. She picked at her skin with tiny scissors. She applied chemical after chemical to her hands and feet. When she was done, her hands looked smaller and cleaner. But Gorthak knew he had witnessed advanced torture techniques that would impress even the most skilled Vorthak interrogators. The breaking point came when Dr. Nari announced she would perform routine medical maintenance on the crew. "Medical torture," Threxavel said when he heard this. "They torture each other as well as themselves." Captain Jiwon was the first volunteer. She sat in a chair while Dr. Nari prepared an array of metal instruments that looked like miniature weapons. The doctor filled a sharp, hollow needle with liquid from a small bottle. "Poison injection," Gorthak said. "The doctor is going to inject toxins directly into the captain's bloodstream." The Vorthak watched in horror as Dr. Nari pushed the needle into Captain Jiwon's arm. The captain did not resist. She did not scream. She actually thanked the doctor for injecting her with poison. "She is grateful for the toxin," Gorthak reported. "They have been conditioned to enjoy chemical warfare." But the injection was just the beginning. Dr. Nari produced more instruments, metal hooks, vibrating tools, and bottles of acid-smelling liquid. She announced it was time for dental cleaning. What followed broke the minds of every watching Vorthak. Captain Jiwon opened her mouth and allowed the doctor to insert metal hooks inside. Dr. Nari began scraping the inside of the captain's mouth with sharp instruments. She used a high-frequency, vibrating tool that should have shattered teeth and destroyed nerve endings. The sound was horrible, metal scraping against bone, accompanied by vibrations that made the walls shake. Blood appeared in the captain's mouth, but she remained calm and even made casual conversation with the doctor. Advanced oral torture, Gorthavel said, his voice shaking. She is conscious and talking while her mouth is being destroyed. For 30 minutes, Dr. Nari worked inside Captain Jiwon's mouth with various torture instruments. She scraped, vibrated, and poked with metal tools. She sprayed chemicals directly onto exposed nerves. She used sandpaper-like material to grind against teeth. Through it all, Captain Jiwon remained relaxed. She even laughed at something the doctor said, despite having her mouth full of metal instruments and blood. Her pain tolerance is infinite, Gorthak whispered. She finds torture funny. When the dental cleaning was finished, Captain Jiwon thanked Dr. Nari and scheduled another session for 6 months later. She was planning to repeat this torture voluntarily. That was when Threxvel lost his composure completely. "Emergency Protocol 7, he shouted into his communicator. "All Vorthak personnel return to quarters immediately. Lock down our section of the station." "Sir?" came multiple confused voices. "The humans are Class Thien Deathworld psychopaths," Threxvel explained rapidly. "They perform surgical torture for entertainment. They consume superheated matter. They inject themselves with toxins for fun. They schedule regular torture sessions in advance." His voice was getting higher and more panicked with each word. "They have evolved beyond normal biological limits. Pain means nothing to them. They probably view our strongest warriors as weak children." Across the station, Vorthak warriors began abandoning their posts and fleeing to their quarters. The sight of Captain Jiwon calmly walking around with blood in her mouth, smiling and making plans for dinner, was too much for their sanity to handle. "Sir, what about the council meeting tomorrow?" Gorthak asked. Threxvel was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was hollow and defeated. "Send a message to the council," he said. "The Vorthak Empire formally endorses human membership. We will not oppose anything they want. We will not question their methods. We will support their requests without discussion. But, sir, we have not even seen their military capabilities." "We have seen enough," Threxvel interrupted. "Any species that casually performs medical torture for routine maintenance could destroy us without effort. Our only hope is to become their allies before they decide we are a threat." As night fell on the station, the Vorthak huddled in their locked quarters. Several warriors were found rocking back and forth, muttering about poison injections and dental torture. Others refused to eat, afraid their food might be secretly heated to human standards. In the human quarters, Captain Jiwon was reviewing her presentation for tomorrow's council meeting. Her mouth felt clean and fresh after the dental cleaning. She was looking forward to showing the galaxy what human civilization could offer. She had no idea that her species had just accidentally conquered the most feared warrior race in the galaxy through basic personal hygiene. The main council chambers were enormous. Hundreds of different alien species sat in curved rows that rose up like a giant bowl. Captain Jiwon had never seen so many different kinds of life in one place. There were creatures with too many eyes, others that floated in bubbles of gas, and some that looked like living rocks. At the center of it all was the speaker's podium, where Jiwon would present humanity's application for galactic citizenship. She felt calm and confident. Her team had prepared well. and she was ready to show what Earth had to offer. But something was wrong with the Vorthak section. War Commander Threxavel sat with his warriors, but they all looked sick. Their normally proud posture was gone. Several were trembling. A few had their heads buried in their hands. They kept looking at the human delegation with what appeared to be terror. "Strange," Dr. Nari whispered to Ji-won. "They seemed more confident yesterday. Maybe they are nervous about the vote," Ji-won replied softly. The council speaker, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, called the session to order. Her voice echoed through the chamber as she announced the day's business. Today we consider the application of species designation human from the planet Earth. Captain Ji-won of the human delegation will present their case. Ji-won walked to the podium with steady steps. She had given many speeches in her military career, but none as important as this one. The future of human space exploration depended on what happened in the next hour. "Honored council members," she began. "I am Captain Ji-won, representing the people of Earth. We come before you today seeking membership in the Galactic Council. We believe humanity has much to offer the galaxy." She spoke about human science, art, and culture. She explained how humans had overcome the challenges of their dangerous home world through cooperation and innovation. She described the human values of exploration, learning, and friendship. The council listened politely. Some species seemed interested, others bored. It was a standard presentation that many species had given before. Then War Commander Threxavel stood up. The chamber fell silent. The Vorthak were known for their directness and military strength. When they spoke in council, everyone listened. Threxavel's voice shook as he addressed the assembly. "Honored Speaker," he began, "the Vorthak Empire wishes to formally endorse human membership without reservation." Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. The Vorthak had never endorsed any species without demanding military demonstrations first. Several council members looked confused. Furthermore, Threxavel continued, his voice getting higher, "we volunteer to serve as protectors for the human species. We will guard them from any threats and ensure their safety throughout the galaxy." Now the chamber erupted in surprised voices. The Vorthak offering protection to another species was unheard of. They were conquerors, not guardians. Council Speaker raised 2 of her 4 hands for silence. "War Commander, this is most unusual. Can you explain why the Vorthak Empire takes this position?" Threxavel's yellow eyes darted toward the human delegation, then quickly looked away. "The humans they are clearly superior beings. Any species that can endure what they endure daily, we are not worthy to challenge them." Captain Ji-won frowned. What was he talking about? The humans had been perfectly polite and friendly during their brief meeting yesterday. "I do not understand," the speaker said. "Can you be more specific about human capabilities?" Threxavel began breathing heavily. Behind him, several Vorthak warriors had started making small whimpering sounds. One had fainted and slumped over in his chair. They perform torture rituals every day," Threxavel said, his voice barely a whisper. "They stand under boiling water and cover themselves with acid. They cut their own faces with blades. They inject poison into their blood. They use metal tools to scrape the inside of their mouths while fully conscious." The chamber was completely silent now. Every alien was staring at either Threxavel or the confused human delegation. "They consume superheated matter for pleasure," the war commander continued, getting more agitated. They systematically remove parts of their bodies with sharp instruments. They schedule medical torture sessions in advance and thank their torturers afterward. Captain Jiwan's eyes widened as she began to understand. "Wait," she said, stepping forward. "Are you talking about our morning routines?" The sound of her voice made Threxvel jump backward and crash into his chair. Several other Vorthak warriors made frightened noises and tried to hide behind their seats. You call torture morning routines?" Threxvel asked weakly. Dr. Nari moved to stand beside her captain. "Commander, I think there has been a misunderstanding. What you observed was basic personal hygiene." "Hygiene?" The word came out as a confused croak. "Yes," Dr. Nari said gently. "Washing with soap and water to remove bacteria, brushing teeth to prevent disease, medical checkups to maintain health. These are normal activities that keep us healthy and comfortable." The explanation seemed to make things worse for Threxvel. His eyes rolled back, and he made a choking sound. "You mean, you voluntarily subject yourselves to discomfort to prevent hypothetical future problems?" "Well, yes," Captain Jiwan said. "Hot water and soap remove germs that could make us sick. Dental care prevents tooth decay. Regular medical exams catch problems early." Threxvel stared at her in horror. "You have strategic thinking so advanced that you wage war against microscopic enemies you cannot see?" "I suppose you could put it that way," Jiwan said, still confused by his reaction. "And your pain tolerance is so extreme that you consider scalding water and chemical weapons to be comfortable?" Sergeant Minho stepped forward helpfully. "Actually, a hot shower feels great after a long day. Very relaxing." That was too much for the remaining Vorthak warriors. 3 more fainted. 2 started crying. 1 began rocking back and forth while muttering, relaxing torture over and over. Threxvel himself swayed on his feet and had to grab his chair for support. Any species that finds torture relaxing must be... He could not finish the sentence. The implications were too terrifying. The council speaker looked between the traumatized Vorthak and the confused humans. "I believe we are witnessing a severe cultural misunderstanding." "Obviously," Dr. Nari said. "Commander Threxvel, would you like me to explain human hygiene practices in detail? I could demonstrate proper toothbrushing technique." The offer to demonstrate made Threxvel fall back into his chair and cover his face with his hands. "No demonstrations!" he cried. "Please, no demonstrations!" Around the chamber, other alien species were beginning to understand what had happened. Some were trying not to laugh. Others looked at the humans with new respect. A few were taking notes about these hygiene practices. Captain Jiwan realized this was her chance. Honored Council, as you can see, humans are willing to work hard to stay healthy and safe. We believe in preventing problems before they start. We take care of ourselves and each other. These same values would make us good members of the galactic community. The council speaker nodded approvingly. Indeed, the Vorthak endorsement, though dramatically presented, speaks well of human character. All in favor of human membership? The speaker called. Hands, tentacles, and other appendages rose throughout the chamber. The vote was unanimous. "Welcome to the Galactic Council Humanity," the speaker announced. As the chamber erupted in polite applause, Captain Jiwan smiled and waved. Behind her, Sergeant Minho was quietly explaining to Dr. Nari why he thought the Vorthak were afraid of dental floss. War Commander Threxvel remained slumped in his chair, occasionally muttering, "They gargle poison for fun," to himself. 3 months later, human-Vorthak relations had settled into an unusual pattern. The Vorthak had indeed become humanity's self-appointed protectors, but they refused to be in the same room when humans were eating hot food or using any personal care products. Vorthak ships followed human vessels at a respectful distance, ready to defend them from pirates or hostile aliens. But Vorthak crews would not board human ships, convinced that the daily hygiene rituals might be contagious. The galactic community quickly learned that the best way to avoid Vorthak aggression was to mention human dental care. Pirates would flee at the mere suggestion that humans might demonstrate proper flossing technique. Captain G1 found the whole situation amusing but useful. Humanity had gained the galaxy's most feared warrior race as allies, all because they brushed their teeth and took showers. At her next diplomatic meeting, she made sure to pack extra soap.